not a YouTuber, just like making videos. Now, if you want to find me, it's not that hard. If you want to find me, it's not that hard. All you have to do is follow the trail of deconstructed arguments. I'm a debater through and through. When you say the word debate, I'm like, what? When someone mentions the word debate, when Pinhead Blackston's in the room, I'm like, what debate? What? Who wants to debate? You know what I'm saying? You can hear crickets chirping. You know what I'm saying? I'm all about the debate. I am like a machine. I am like a computer program. I don't even know when to stop. And I'm going to do a parody of that KRS-One lyric. You know, you wanted to debate Pinhead Blackston. You went home and told your papa, he slapped you in your head and said, Now, a lot of people are not going to like this video. A lot of people are going to be dissatisfied with it. And it's the concept of debating versus roasting. And some people say, well, they are two different things, and so forth. Now, people have said my videos are boring. They said, I don't belong in this corner of YouTube. But my thing is, this corner of YouTube has an identity crisis. Now, it's not like this circus and this carnival have been going on and I seen it and I opted to jump right in the dab center of it. No, I was here. You know what I mean? I was here, you know what I'm saying, before the first cloud formulation to accumulate the first water drop to fall on dry earth. I was right here. And you know, they say my videos are boring and people want to be entertained. But me, I'm not trying to entertain you. I'm trying to enlighten you. I'm trying to wake you up from your mental laziness. And then when I see the garbage that does get views, you know, I'm like people slapping them faces with dildos, talking about dead relatives and things of that nature. I'm like, this tripe? And this is what I'm going to have to do? Act like a complete buffoon? Be involved in all sorts of boondoggle just to get views? Nah, man, I'm not doing that. I'm not selling my ass just to get a couple of, you know, just to get 500 views. Make a complete idiot of myself. You know, and that's the thing. Now, these roasters really botched things up. The roasters have made a mess of things. And when I say that this corner of YouTube has an identity crisis, because it started off with this whole concept of black unity, we're going to go after the quote-unquote coons, the goons. They're talking bad about black people, you know, and so forth. So therefore, you would say that there was some sort of ingredient of black pride. But then the roasters went amok. They just started roasting everybody. Roast, 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 roast. And I myself have been a subject of ridicule. I was targeted by the roasters. And that's the thing with these fucking coward-ass roasters. If you disagree with one of their argument, you know what I'm saying, their line of defense is, I'm going to roast you. I'm going to roast you. Some of these roasters, before they make another roast video, they should know how to fucking form a proper sentence. Because a lot of these roasters, I feel that they roast because they're dumb. They have nothing else. You know, I'm just going to keep it real. And, you know what I'm saying, and then they want to go after the so-called intellectuals, you know, the Painless Risens, the David Carl, well, I don't give a fuck about Tommy Sotomayor. And only thing they do is prove these guys right. When these guys sit back and say, oh, these are black men, they can't address the topic, they can't address your points, all they have to do is resort to name calling, they're right. I can't argue with that. That's why when I come in, I'm going after your points. Yeah, I may make an off-kilter remark by calling somebody a bootlicker and so forth, but that's because I'm amped up. I'm ready to go. You know, it's like you've seen what happened to Penis Rizzy. You know, he came to a gunfight with a junior Pee-wee water pistol while I showed up with 2 llamas. You know, he left, when he makes his videos, he can get his little rah-rahs, his constituents to thumb him up and say, yeah, but once he came into open waters, once he came into my territory, you know what I'm saying, that was, you know what I mean, you can't do that. You know, that's unacceptable. You know what I mean, you gotta be on your A game. You know, that's it. I will unload on you. I will show up with dump trucks full of knowledge and drop it on your head. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to make reading books popular again. That's all I do is read books and play chess. Now, you may disagree with me. You may find me boring, but it doesn't mean that I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? I think about everything I say carefully. You know, I'm a macrocosmic thinker. And my theory is that the average human being is exposed to an immeasurable amount of information every day. It comes in this ears and it goes out the other one. As if for me that information sticks. Yeah, I process it, put it through all my filters there. But you know what I'm saying, the roasters themselves have made a mess of things. And the roasters will not take accountability for what they've done. They've done a poor job breaking down the quote-unquote coons. You know what I'm saying? They've only proved them right. And people have always said, like, oh, I've been trying to grab Tommy's attention. You're mad because you couldn't get their attention. Yeah, but look at the stuff that got their attention. Of course, dudes sitting around making 30 videos back to back talking about fuck Tommy's daughter and I want to stick their fingers in Tommy's asshole. Or they talk about all sorts of gay rhetoric and homosexual. They say just a whole lot of malarkey, you know what I mean, that makes no sense. And they've done a terrible job. That's why they don't let people know me. You know what I'm saying? They just don't want to mention my name, you know, because they have to come with a whole completely different angle with me. And they'll probably talk about my looks, say I'm some sort of recluse, some sort of introvert, but they cannot. They can't do nothing about my statements, you know. I'm like a madman foaming at the mouth on this. Ask John Logic. Now, I got nothing against John Logic, but a tactic John Logic used against me, he used my affiliation with Woodgrain. Then after that, John Logic was trying to use how much money I got or what I do for a living. He didn't want to go after my points. Now, I find that funny for someone who's a so-called humanitarian that, you know, talk about material possessions. Yeah, you know, and LA. I'm like, some of these guys don't even have a fucking pot to piss in themselves, and they want to talk about me. You know, you don't have to like me on a personal level. You know, I understand. You know, a lot of people don't like me. You know, so they consider me obnoxious or so forth. But you know what I'm saying? If I'm going to, you know what I'm saying, destroy your statements, show me that same respect. Come back and try to take apart my statements and stop using character assassinations. You know, and that's the thing. And these roasters roast them, whatever, but they won't deal with their points. And then I watched that video. Also, I was checking out that display Tommy Sotomayor put on about LA, an old video, because I really don't check his videos out, on his Epix Ranch channel, and how Tommy pointed out LA's contradiction when it comes to light-skinned, dark-skinned black women. And LA said, I'm paraphrasing here, said something of the other about how, you know, basically light-skinned women in general are more attractive than dark-skinned women. And that's the thing, that roasters they're not too bright, and they contradict themselves all the time, or at least the ones on this corner of YouTube. And the quote-unquote super coons can go after them and just use their own statements against them. LA ethered himself, but LA is a flip-flopper. The dude's not too bright. And that's the thing. And also with the roasters, they've attacked any and everybody. They brought this corner of YouTube down. And people always say, well, you don't like this corner, then why don't you move on to another sector or some shit like that. I'm going to give you another Mark Twain quote when he said, it's easier to stay out than to get out. I'm paraphrasing here, but it's easier to stay out than to get out. So it wasn't like, as I said before, this madness was going on. I seen it and I jumped into it. It's more so it just kind of like erected itself all around it. And the thing is with roasters is that it's more so they want attention than they have animosity towards a certain individual. I'm like, nobody in this corner of YouTube is fucking their girl and owes them money. So it's like, I understand that's the most effective way to communicate in this corner of YouTube, just to roast to grab people's attention. But the roasters have caused segue for the trolls and all the problems. And they do it under this banner of, I guess being pro-black, since they don't like the statements of the quote-unquote coons. But the roasters have gone after anybody. You can't reason with them. They're like fucking animals. Even if you have a disagreement with what they're saying, you want to call shit out, then they get mad and they snap at you and they say, well, stay out of this corner of YouTube. But then when they they want to do a psychoanalysis of this corner of YouTube and talk about how fucked up it is. But then they must understand themselves the reason why the way things are the way they are is they helped it. They helped propel things, put things inside motion. They're the reason. But they want to sit back and judge and make videos this sector, and everybody else is at the fault except for them. It's almost as if their brains are hardwired different. It's almost like I look at these roasters and I wonder if they are psychopathic. They got a mental disorder. Because a lot of these roasters, we know that their own real life is sort of messed. I'm not even going to go into it, but you know that they do stuff for attention. Now that's not, no, this is just me just observing their behavior. And I'm saying, this is not normal. This goes far beyond somebody just cracking jokes. These people are starving for attention. They have a narcissistic mentality. They want to be the center of attention, and they will do anything. They will do them, and it's not even about being funny. It's, I'm funny, I'm a comedian. No, you make fucking roast videos. Don't insult the good name of comedians. Comedians go on stage. They can do observative comedy, like, hey, you know what it's like to go inside you know what it's like to go inside a post office and blah blah blah. They can't do that type of comedy. And one thing about psychopaths, not only do they want attention, but they're also parasitic. They kind of need other people. Am I ringing bells here? But in a debater, as in myself, just because I'm going to come in and I'm going to chop down your argument, just because I'm going to put it inside that wood chipper, it doesn't mean that I have animosity. It's not that I'm doing it for attention. And we can keep it on. We can even have a civil debate. Just like me and Hollow Point. When I had my differences with him on his one of his videos about black people aren't from Africa, or he felt that the majority aren't from Africa. I just had no name calling, no acting cantankerous. I just, we had a disagreement, and that was that. I didn't have to make another YouTube enemy out of, me and him having conflicting ideologies on the subject matter. But that's all I want to say. Thanks for watching, and Sally forth.